I was sitting on the floor of a single-room Airbnb in Alfama, Lisbon, the kind of place tourists rent for 3 nights to feel authentic. I'd been there for 8 weeks. My credit card kept declining when I tried to book another month. The landlord had already sent 2 messages asking about payment. I had 47 euros in my account and a return flight I couldn't afford to change. 2 years earlier, I'd stepped off a plane at Lisbon Portugal Airport with $195,000 in my bank account and a plan to never work in American tech again. My name is David. I'm 57 years old, and this is the story of how I lost everything in Portugal while thinking I was building exactly the life I wanted. I worked in tech for 31 years. Started as a developer in the 90s, worked my way up to senior product manager at a mid-sized software company in San Jose. Good salary, stock options, the usual Silicon Valley track. I wasn't getting rich, but I was comfortable. Then in 2019, the company got acquired. Most of the product team was let go. I got a severance package, not enormous, but decent, enough to make me think about what came next. I was 55. My marriage had ended 3 years earlier. No kids. My ex-wife had remarried and moved to Oregon. I had no ties keeping me in California except inertia and the insane cost of living. I'd been renting a 1-bedroom in Mountain View for $2,900 a month. Eating out cost a fortune. Everything felt expensive and temporary. I started researching retirement abroad, not because I was particularly adventurous, but because the math made sense. I had about $170,000 saved, plus the severance brought me to just under $200,000 total. That wasn't enough to retire comfortably in the Bay Area, but in other parts of the world, it could stretch for decades. Portugal kept appearing in my research. European Union country, stable democracy, good healthcare, English widely spoken, and the big draw, the Golden Visa program. If you invested a certain amount in Portuguese property, you could get residency, eventually citizenship. It seemed perfect. A legal pathway to retire in Europe with decent weather and a lower cost of living than California. I spent 6 months reading forums, watching YouTube videos, joining expat Facebook groups. Everyone said the same things. Portugal is affordable, the people are friendly, the bureaucracy is manageable if you have the right help. Lisbon has great food, beautiful architecture, and you can live well on $2,000 a month. In March 2022, I sold everything I owned in California. Furniture, car, anything I couldn't fit in 2 suitcases. I closed my lease, said goodbye to the few friends I still had in the area, and booked a one-way flight to Lisbon. I felt lighter than I had in years. The flight landed early morning. I took a taxi to a short-term rental I'd booked in Príncipe Real, a nice neighborhood with cafes and little parks. The air smelled different, cooler, with salt from the ocean. I walked around that first day just looking at tile facades and cobblestone streets. Everything felt possible. I'd planned to spend the first month getting oriented, then start the process of buying a property for the Golden Visa. My lawyer in California had recommended I find a local attorney who specialized in helping foreign investors. I found one through an expat forum. She had good reviews, clear communication, spoke perfect English. Her name was Sophia. She was 32, originally from Porto, but had been working in Lisbon for 6 years helping foreign clients navigate Portuguese property law. We met at her office near Avenida da Liberdade. Professional setup, nice furniture, certificates on the wall. She explained the Golden Visa process clearly. I needed to invest at least 280,000 euros in real estate. That was about $310,000 at the time, more than I had, but there were other options. Renovating properties in low-density areas qualified at a lower threshold, 250,000 euros, about $275,000. Still tight for my budget, but possible if I was strategic. Sophia suggested we look at properties that needed work, Buy something under value, invest in renovation, and the combined total would meet the threshold. It made sense. I'd done some light remodeling back in California. I understood the concept of adding value through improvements. Over the next 2 weeks, Sophia showed me properties all over Lisbon and the surrounding areas. Most were outside my budget or in worse condition than I wanted to deal with. Then she found something in Sintra, about 40 minutes from central Lisbon. A small townhouse, 2 bedrooms, needed significant renovation but structurally sound. The asking price was €115,000. The location was beautiful. Sintra is up in the hills, green and cooler than Lisbon, full of historic palaces and quintas. The property had good bones, original tile work, high ceilings. Sophia explained that after renovation, similar properties in the area sold for €250,000 to €300,000. I could buy it for €115,000, put another €100,000 into renovation, and still be under my total budget of $200,000. The combined investment would qualify for the golden visa, and if I ever wanted to sell, I'd make a profit. It seemed like exactly the kind of smart, strategic move I was good at. Buy low, add value, create equity. The same principles that had worked for tech products could work for real estate. Sophia handled all the paperwork. She connected me with a notary, helped me open a Portuguese bank account, walked me through every signature. The process took 6 weeks. In May 2022, I wired €115,000 from my US account to complete the purchase. I owned property in Portugal. That's when I met Anna. Sophia had recommended a project manager to oversee the renovation, someone who spoke English, understood what foreign buyers wanted, and could coordinate contractors. Anna was 29, born in Lisbon, and had worked on several renovation projects for expat clients. We met at the Sintra property the day after I got the keys. She arrived in a small Fiat, wearing jeans and a simple white shirt, her hair pulled back. She walked through the property taking notes, measuring walls, checking electrical panels. She was efficient, knowledgeable, and didn't waste time on small talk. "This is good structure," she said in clear English. "The bones are strong, but the systems need complete replacement. Electrical, plumbing, everything. Also, the roof has water damage in 2 places. You can see here." She showed me the issues, explained what needed to be done, gave rough estimates. I appreciated how direct she was. No sugarcoating, no overselling, just facts. Over the next week, she prepared a full renovation proposal. New electrical throughout, updated plumbing, roof repair, new kitchen and bathrooms, fresh tile and paint. Total estimated cost was €95,000, about $105,000. I had about $80,000 left in my account. The renovation estimate was higher than I'd hoped, but Anna explained that Portuguese contractors always came in higher than initial quotes once work started. Hidden issues, material costs, labor. She suggested we start with essential systems first, then do cosmetic work in phases as budget allowed. It made sense. I authorized the first phase, €60,000, about $66,000. Electrical, plumbing, roof, structural work. Anna said it would take 3 to 4 months. During that time, I stayed in a rented apartment in Cascais, a beach town near Lisbon. I had about $14,000 left in savings. Not much cushion, but the property would be worth significantly more once renovated. I could either sell it for profit or refinance and pull equity out. Anna and I met weekly at the Sintra property to check on progress. The contractors were good. The work was moving forward. Anna was always there, coordinating everything, solving problems, keeping things on schedule. We started having coffee after site visits. She'd recommend places in Sintra, small cafes tourists didn't know about. We'd talk about the project, but also about other things. She asked about my life in California. why I'd left, what I was looking for in Portugal. I found myself enjoying these conversations more than I wanted to admit. She told me about growing up in Lisbon, studying architecture but ending up in project management because the money was better. She wanted to eventually start her own development company, but needed more capital and connections. In Portugal, everything is about who you know, she said one afternoon. Foreigners think it's just about money, but relationships matter more. If you don't have the right connections, you can't get permits, can't get good contractors, can't make anything happen. I understood that. Tech had been the same way. It wasn't just about being good at your job, it was about knowing the right people. 4 months into the renovation, Anna told me she'd found an opportunity. A small building in Moraria, one of Lisbon's oldest neighborhoods, was for sale. 3 floors, currently run down, but the location was perfect. The area was gentrifying fast. Investors were buying up properties, converting them to short-term rentals. If we bought this building, renovated it, we could create 4 or 5 high-end apartments, she explained, showing me photos on her phone. Each unit could rent for 1,500 to 2,000 euros per month, or sell each for 200,000 plus. The profit potential is enormous. I asked how much the building cost. 190,000 euros, she said. About $210,000. But we'd need another 100,000 for renovation. Total investment, 300,000. Total return could be close to $1 million within 2 years. I told her I didn't have that kind of money anymore. I'd put everything into the Sintra property. We could do it as partners, she said. I have connections with a bank that lends to small developers. If you could put in 80,000, I could arrange financing for the rest. We split everything 50-50, equal partners. I didn't have 80,000. I had about 10,000 left. But I had the Sintra property. It was nearly finished. I could sell it, use the profit to invest in this new opportunity. Anna walked me through the numbers. The Sintra property, once completed, could sell for 220,000 euros, maybe more. I'd invested 180,000 total, buying and renovation. That was 40,000 euros profit, about $44,000. Combined with what I had left, I'd have just enough to buy into the Moraria project. This is how people build real wealth here, Anna said. Not by sitting on one property, by moving capital strategically. It made sense, and I trusted Anna. She'd managed the Sintra renovation professionally, stayed on budget, delivered quality work. This was an opportunity to go from owning one property to owning half of a building with serious income potential. The Sintra property sold in September 22. The buyer paid 215,000 euros. After agent fees and taxes, I walked away with about 38,000 euros, roughly $42,000. I wired $80,000 to Anna to start the Moraia project. That was everything I had left, except about $3,000 I kept for living expenses. Anna registered a company for the project. We were official partners, 50-50 ownership. She showed me the incorporation documents, signed by both of us. We opened a business bank account. Everything seemed legitimate and professional. The first month, Anna showed me progress photos. Demolition had started, debris removal, initial cleaning. The building looked rough, but the structure was solid. She introduced me to the architect, drawing up plans for the apartment conversions. The second month, she asked for an additional 20,000 euros. Permitting costs were higher than expected. Environmental assessments, historical preservation fees, bureaucracy. I didn't have 20,000 euros. I told her that clearly. I can cover it temporarily, she said, but we'll need to adjust the ownership structure to reflect my additional investment. Instead of 50-50, it would be 60-40. I didn't love it, but she was putting in her own money to keep the project moving. It seemed fair. I agreed. The third month, she asked for another 30,000. Contractor bids came in higher than projected. Material costs had increased. Labor was expensive. Again, I didn't have it. Again, she said she could cover it, but the ownership would shift further. 70-30. I was starting to feel uneasy. I asked to visit the construction site. Anna said it wasn't safe yet. Too much demolition. Insurance wouldn't allow non-workers on site. I asked to see detailed budgets and receipts. She provided spreadsheets, but they were vague. Line items like structural work and permit processing, without itemized details. By the fourth month, I'd essentially been reduced to a minority partner in a project I'd funded. I insisted on visiting the site. Anna reluctantly agreed. We drove to Moraria one afternoon in December. The building was there, the address matched, but when we walked up to it, the door was locked with a chain and padlock. There was no construction equipment, no signs of recent work. The windows were dark. They're between phases right now, Anna explained, waiting on permit approval before they can continue. I asked which contractors were working on it. She gave me names I didn't recognize. I asked for phone numbers. She said she'd send them later. That night, I started making calls. I contacted the Lisbon City Permitting Office. They had no record of permits filed for that address. I called the architect Anna had introduced me to. His number was disconnected. I went back to the building alone the next day, knocked on nearby shops, asked if they knew anything about renovation work. Nobody had seen anything. One shop owner said the building had been abandoned for at least 2 years. I called Anna. She didn't answer. I sent messages. Nothing. I went to Sophia, the lawyer who'd helped me buy the original Sintra property. I showed her everything. The partnership documents, the bank transfers, the photos Anna had sent. Sophia looked at the incorporation papers. This company registration is real, she said, but you need to check the bank account. See where the money actually went. I went to the bank where we'd opened the business account. They required both partners to make withdrawal requests. I checked the transaction history. The $80,000 I'd transferred had been withdrawn in 3 separate transactions over 2 months. All approved with my digital signature, except I'd never approved anything. Anna had forged my authorization somehow, maybe using scanned copies of documents I'd signed for other legitimate things. The money was gone. I reported it to the police. They took a statement, said they'd investigate, gave me a case number. I tried to find Anna. Her phone was disconnected. The office she'd worked from was a shared workspace. They said she'd ended her rental agreement 2 months ago. Nobody knew where she'd gone. I hired a private investigator. Cost me €1,200 I didn't have, put it on credit. He found out Anna wasn't even her real name. The woman I'd been working with had used a fake identity. The real Anna, whose documents were stolen, lived in Porto and had no idea her identity had been used. I'd lost $180,000 in 2 years. I had about $1,500 to my name. The Moraria building was real. The address existed. But the renovation story had been complete fiction. Anna, or whoever she actually was, had probably never intended to develop it. She'd used it as a convincing prop. The police investigation went nowhere. They said this kind of fraud happens frequently with foreign investors. The perpetrators are usually gone before victims realize what happened. Without a real identity, there was nothing to pursue. Sophia explained that even if I found her, legal action could take years and cost more than I'd ever recover. I was stuck in Portugal with no money, no property, no path forward. I couldn't afford my rental in Cascais anymore. I moved to a cheaper place in Benfica, far from the tourist areas, then to an even cheaper room in Amadora. Eventually I ended up in the Airbnb in Alfama because month-to-month rooms required deposits I didn't have. I tried to find work, 57 years old with no Portuguese language skills and no local network. Tech companies wanted younger developers with recent experience. I applied to English teaching positions. Most required certification I didn't have. I took some freelance translation work through online platforms, made maybe 300 or 400 euros a month. It wasn't enough. I stopped eating out, started buying the cheapest groceries possible, rice, beans, eggs, lost about 20 pounds without trying. I avoided contact with people I knew back in California. Didn't tell anyone what had happened. The shame felt worse than the poverty. The credit cards maxed out. Started getting collection notices. Stopped checking email. My US bank account got closed for insufficient funds. Lost access to the little bit of money I had left. I contacted the American Embassy about repatriation assistance. They said they could help in emergencies, but I had to prove I had somewhere to go back to. I didn't have an address in the US anymore. No family to stay with. I reached out to former colleagues, asked if anyone knew of remote work I could do. Most messages went unanswered. A few people sent sympathetic replies, but no actual opportunities. I sat in that Airbnb room for hours every day applying to jobs I knew I wouldn't get. The room had one window that looked at another building. No view, no light. The 47 euros left in my account came from selling my laptop to a pawn shop in Rossio. It was the last valuable thing I owned. I thought about what I'd tell people if they asked what happened. There wasn't a good explanation. I'd made every decision carefully, or so I thought. I'd done research, hired professionals, followed advice. I'd trusted someone who presented well and seemed knowledgeable. The only real mistake was thinking that being careful was the same as being protected. Portugal didn't do this to me. The systems weren't designed to scam foreigners. I just happened to meet someone who saw an opportunity and took it. Could have happened anywhere, but it happened here because I'd put myself in a position where I was alone, disconnected, and desperate to make my remaining money work. I'm still in Lisbon, still in that Airbnb for now, though I'll have to leave soon. I've been talking to a charity that helps displaced foreigners. They might be able to get me into temporary housing while I sort out what comes next. Going back to the US would mean starting over with nothing at 57. No savings, no home, damaged credit, years out of the workforce. Staying here means figuring out how to survive on almost nothing in a country where I barely speak the language and have no support system. Neither option feels like a solution. They're just different versions of the same problem. I don't think about the money much anymore. What's gone is gone. I think about time instead. 2 years I spent believing I was building something. 2 years that might have been better spent doing almost anything else. The part that stays with me isn't the loss itself. It's how long it took to see what was obvious. Looking back, the signs were there. The vague budgets, the delayed site visits, the constant requests for more money. I saw them and chose to believe the explanations because believing meant I could keep moving forward. I wanted to trust Anna because trusting her meant I wasn't alone in this. That's the real trap. Not the money, the loneliness that makes you accept things you'd normally question. If you're watching this because you're thinking about moving abroad with your savings, I'm not telling you not to. I'm just telling you this. Being careful isn't the same as being safe. Having a plan isn't the same as having control. And sometimes the biggest risk isn't the country or the investment. It's how much you need it to work.